What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Season 2, Episode 10, 10th Inning Screwballs. I'm Dante Esposito.
And I'm Sevi Esposito. Dante, Season 2, Episode 10. I don't know if I want to go 2, 10, combine them, how to keep you off balance here. I'm going to go easy. We're going to go 10. 10. Who's your favorite 10? All sports, period.
I'm going to give a little throwback because he doesn't wear 10 anymore, but he used to.
Okay.
JT Miller with the Rangers.
JT Miller, you're going hockey. It's 100 degrees out, and you're inside in the rink. Good for you. I forgot hockey existed at this moment, but that's good. You're on hockey. That's 10. I mean, probably world famous. The most 10 is Lionel Messi. Right? Messi's probably the great. He's the GOAT of 10s. Really, we don't talk about soccer that much because we don't know that much about soccer, but we do know that he's the greatest. And when you consider that Pele was one of the great players, and I'm saying that this guy was better, that says a lot about Messi. And my favorite number 10 was the Scooter, Phil Rizzuto, who I grew up listening to and worshiping and thinking the world of. But I'm not going to go there. Last night we spoke to our sports friends, Dave and Will Morrow, and Dave, being a big Giant fan, was talking about his favorite quarterbacks and such over the years, and I'm going to go with Fran Tarkenton. Fran Tarkenton, number 10, started off a Viking, went to the Giants in some of the lean years of the Giants, went back to the Vikings and actually brought them to a Super Bowl. As far as number 10s are concerned, the only number 10 to ever win an MVP in the NFL was Fran Tarkenton. But Fran Tarkenton revolutionized quarterbacking in that he was the first and the best scrambler. We watch running quarterbacks today, like Lamar Jackson and such, and we see scrambling quarterbacks today, like Patrick Mahomes. Nobody did it the way Fran Tarkenton did it. He made defenses look foolish, running around for minutes at a time while the defenders were just chasing and falling after him. Revolutionized what a quarterback. It was not big, 6 foot tall, less than 200 pounds. They couldn't catch him. So Fran Tarkenton's my number 10 today. Dante, what do we have on the docket today?
We got the White Sox, who have lost 21 games in a row. They're inching up on the record. We got the MLB trade deadline that just happened last week, but we're going to start off with the Olympics. What are your biggest takeaways from the Olympics so far?
Okay. Biggest takeaways. First of all, the opening ceremonies, aside from Celine Dion, who's been very sick, coming out and belting out a song that was beautiful and her voice sounded great and just emotional when you think about this woman who's been so sick coming on and doing this in our homeland, France. Really nice. Okay. Aside from that, the Olympics, in a lot of ways, and starting right off with the opening ceremonies, has been a shit show over there. Okay. And the French have just screwed it up. They've screwed it up. From we're going to swim down the Seine River and we can't get the river right, so we're postponing the events because we have to clean up the river, to finally getting them to swim in the river, and people are getting sick and seeing things underwater that they couldn't believe what they were seeing. A mess, a total mess. The opening ceremonies were disgraceful. It's in the name of creative freedom and artistry, they created opening ceremonies that were distasteful, disrespectful, and overall awful. The whole menage a trois thing that started with just being off color, to this mockery of the Last Supper, with the transgender personnel taking those roles. Embarrassing. Okay, embarrassing. So put that aside and let's get to the games. I've got this thing about saying that current athletes are the GOAT, greatest of all time. You and I argue over this often, okay, because I think it's overused and performances from the past are forgotten. But we're probably seeing two GOATs here, okay? Simone Biles is very well may be the GOAT of female gymnastics. We're talking about somebody who's, in this Olympics, 3 golds and a bronze.
Yeah.
And overall in her Olympic career, 7 golds, 2 silvers, and 2 bronze. Pretty amazing. Now, is it hands down the GOAT? Debatable. Nadia Comaneci was the first ever to get a perfect 10 score ever. And she had 5 golds, 3 silvers, and 1 bronze. And then there were others. Olga Korbut had 4 golds and two silvers, and so on and so forth. So you could debate Nadia Comaneci and Simone Biles, but I think Simone Biles is the GOAT. So those people that are saying it today, I got to swallow this. All right. And then the hands down GOAT of today that's happening today is Katie Ledecky. This girl is amazing. All right. So, in her Olympics, 9 golds, 14 medals overall over 12 years. The Olympics are about young athletes who are kind of spent 4 years later, and definitely spent 4 years after that.
Mm.
She's doing it for 12 years and blowing anybody away. When she wins, she comes to the finish line and they have to wait for the others to come in. It's actually silly. They say she could get out of the pool, have a drink, get back in again, and they're finally getting there. It's remarkable. Nobody's ever won by these margins. So she's the GOAT. She's the GOAT, and then some of the emotional things. Djokovic in tennis wins, beats the guy that he just lost to weeks ago in Wimbledon. We talked about the passing of the torch. Well, he took that torch and he burned the other guy in the ass with it because he came back and won the Olympics. And emotional to watch him go into the stands and crying. That's what the Olympics is about. These guys get so emotional and so attached when they're doing it for their country that he's up there crying, holding his daughter, and brings me to Scotty Scheffler. Same thing. Okay, he wins the gold medal for the U.S. in golf, and you could see him whisper singing the national anthem, and then just breaks down in tears. Okay, you don't see him break down in tears when he wins the Masters. Okay, but for America, he did. So really beautiful. And then the most controversial thing, this. And I'm going to turn it over to you because we may or may not agree on this. The ladies' boxing division, where this Algerian boxer, Iman Khalif, who did not pass gender tests for the World Games, has been allowed to fight here in the Olympics and is beating up all of these women, and people are debating whether or not she's a man and should be allowed. I don't know your opinion. Why don't you lay it on us?
Yeah, so she has an XY chromosome. So is she a she? We honestly, I don't know. We'll go with she for now. She was raised as a woman, then later on found out during puberty that she may not be a woman because she is very masculine. So is she a he? I don't know. Gets suspended out of the other boxing league, right? But is still allowed to compete in the Olympics. You mentioned this Olympics just being a straight disaster. This is just a cherry on top. How could you have somebody who is not allowed to box in some leagues allowed to box in the Olympics? I feel like the Olympics should be the standard. It's if you could fight everywhere else, then yes, absolutely you could fight in the Olympics. If you can't fight somewhere else, you probably shouldn't be allowed to fight in the Olympics because the Olympics is the once every 4 years per sport per season, and it's the biggest thing. But you can't let that happen, and you can't tell me that nobody knew about this because obviously, in order to be qualified for the Olympics, they gotta not a background test, but they gotta see your history. And for this to be allowed, or for this to even be a topic, is just I don't think I have the words for it. It's a mess. That's what it is. It's a mess.
Yeah. So, it seems almost every podcast we say the same thing. We're here for sports. It's an escape from all of this. One of the beautiful things about sports, it's escape from the reality of the real world and politics and all that crap. that we have to deal with and watch on the news all day long and live our lives through. But then somehow it creeps. And by the way, as far as politics are concerned, I noticed you're wearing a shirt that I'm wearing today. We look silly that we're wearing the same thing 2 episodes in a row, like our mom dressed us and sent us off to school, right, with a little Flintstones lunchbox. But the shirts, few folks out there, the shirts that we're wearing, we have decided that we're so fed up with the candidates that are running for president that we're going to run, and we're going. There we go. Esposito and Esposito 24, make America Italian again. And that's the platform we're running on. I'm telling you, vote for us. This country's going to come off a whole lot better. But that's beside the point. We tried to avoid politics and political issues, controversial political issues here, but somehow it creeps into sports again. So here I'm going to ask you. Um, it's a I'm going to take it a little bit away from this particular Olympic situation because this is unique. But transgender, all right, it's perfectly legal if an adult, no one is denying that if an adult feels that they're in the wrong body and wants to change sexes. This is not talking about kids, okay? Adults, all right? Kids is a whole different argument, and I don't even think it's an argument. But if an adult feels trapped in a body, I feel like a woman, I don't feel like a man. They have the sex change operation. They're transgender. That's perfectly legal, and I think we agreed. God bless them. Live and let live. But now there's a community of transgender people there. So now what happens? I have a men's room and a ladies' room. I have men's sports, ladies' sports. These are people just like you and I, just like any man or any woman. Where do they perform? These athletes. Where do we slip them in? What is the answer here?
So there is no perfect answer for this because
Right.
everybody's going to have to disagree with something. So I think the only way, I guess, to make it fair, it's no secret that men are physically stronger than women. So I'm sorry to say this, there's no way that there's going to be a transgender league or a transgender section, just like there's men and women for sports. I don't think there's enough transgender athletes to just have a transgender swimming race. Like I don't think that there's enough. So unfortunately, they're gonna have to compete with the men. That's what's fair. Men are stronger. There's too much controversy. Oh, you were born a man, or now you are a man. You might have the physical aspects of a man. You can't just compete with the women because the women are less physically gifted. You just gotta go with the men. Until there's more, until you could have a true division just for
Yeah.
transgenders, you're gonna have to go with the men.
I have not given it a whole lot of thought, but listening to what you're saying right now um, makes me think of the Special Olympics, right? So these people in wheelchairs, these people who are born um, with situations that prevent them from being everything that a person who's not handicapped can do. They have an Olympics for people who were born with a handicap. So there is a special tournament for people like that. Um, by no means am I saying that transgender people are handicapped. I'm not suggesting they go there, but in the same spirit, why not have games that are suited for transgenders? Okay, separately. And when the day comes, if the day comes, that there are enough, you mentioned they're not enough right now to have such a category, that there are enough, okay, and that category does grow in number, okay, then you can have a third category in the
Yeah.
Olympics where men, women, and transgender. So to your point, you can't do it today, but maybe you can do it one day. But in the meantime, maybe there is a place for them. And this trickles all the way down. The subject is crazy now because what's happened in the Olympics. But I see it in high school sports. What's going to happen? When you see this situation, there's just not enough. You can't have a boys baseball team, a girls softball team, and then this transgender.
Well, it shouldn't even be in high school. That's they're too young.
Too young.
That's
Too young. That's it.
yeah.
And now we're going to start to get into politics.
Yeah.
We better not. Okay.
I'll end this on a positive note. USA Rugby. Iona Maher is the star of that team. Quinnipiac is where she went to college. So a little thing there. She is the star of that rugby team. a little Quinnipiac alum. I had to do it.
Back just a little bit more on the ladies boxing. Um, this particular fighter, Khalif, again, you said was raised as a woman, okay, because she was born without male organs, all right, and then it wasn't until puberty that they started to realize that there must be testosterone levels that were rising in her, and and only after at the World Games did they test for XY chromosome, and that's when they discovered that
Yeah.
the testosterone levels were too high. So now this person has lived its whole life as a woman and has done nothing wrong. Didn't say I'm going to fool everybody because I'm a man and I'm going to go get a sex change operation, and now feels being bullied and abused in the press when they did nothing wrong. Do you
Yeah, no,
sympathize with that boxer at all? I
she,
do.
she shouldn't be bullied. I mean,
She
she
is.
didn't. I know she is, but she didn't do anything wrong. It was just very
I
interesting
feel
situation.
I feel for her. Okay. I feel more so for the fighters that she's beating up,
Yeah.
but I feel for her. And my anger doesn't go toward her. My anger goes toward the committees
Mhm.
that allowed this mess to
Yeah.
happen and put her in a bad situation because they're saying you're cool to go fight, and now the world is calling her names and abusing her. We should never put her in there. Those committees should never have put her in that situation. So I feel for her more so. I feel for the Italian girl who got her nose broken on one punch and then had to sit there and cry on the canvas that her dream was crushed. Okay, and not to mention the other fighters who were getting whooped by this person. I feel for them even more. But I also feel for this person who didn't think they were doing anything wrong, and they're told you're allowed to go fight, and didn't try tricking anybody.
Yeah.
Okay, it's the committees that allow this that make this mess. Those are the ones that piss me off, not this girl who's fighting.
Yeah.
Okay. The Chicago White Sox, man, in 1919 they called them the Chicago Black Sox because they treated. They should call them the Black Sox now. The Chicago White Sox can't win a game. What the hell's going on over there?
So they've lost 21 straight games. That ties the American League record. The 1961 Phillies have the longest streak, 23 games. For the White Sox to tie that record, they need to be swept by the Oakland A's. That would be just should be a record in itself, being swept by the 2024 Oakland A's. But that would tie the 23-game losing streak. Now, the White Sox, in all likelihood, will be the worst team in Major League history. They are, terrible. They don't have anything. They have, I think it's since the All-Star break, they have the worst batting average, the worst ERA, the worst whip, the fewest hits, fewest home runs. Really, any stat that you want to find, they're the worst. And the White Sox right now, their winning percentage, I don't have it in front of me. I'm going to try to look it up right now. It's a joke. You look at teams. Oh, they're right around 500. They're a little bit below 500. Well, these White Sox, their win percentage is 235. that's that's terrible. They're 27-88. They could win every single game that they have left, and they still wouldn't be a 500 team. They're 36 and a half games back in the division. This is the worst team anybody has ever seen. And yeah, I'll go here. We went to the All-Star red carpet and we had a brief interaction with Crochet. And we jokingly said,
And for those guys out there who don't know who he is an all-star caliber starting pitcher
for the White
that's
Sox.
on this horrendous team.
Yes. And you jokingly said, we want your signature because you're going to be a Yankee. You're going to get traded. And he laughed. And he knew that there was at least rumors about him getting traded. He didn't end up getting traded. but his expression was, get me out of here.
Yes, it was.
And Miguel Vargas was on the Dodgers, gets traded in a package to go to the White Sox. You are in a World Series contender team. You get traded to the White Sox. That hurts.
That hurts.
That really hurts. But the White Sox are the worst team ever.
So the worst team record wise in history is the expansion New York Mets, and in their defense, they were an expansion team. Okay, so they were assembled by a bunch of leftover
Yeah.
players that other teams weren't protecting, and they got mopped up in 1962, I guess. Um, I should know because I was around. 1961 is when the Phillies um, lost those 23 straight games. They had no excuse since the Phillies are one of the oldest teams in the history of Major League Baseball. They were not an expansion team,
Yeah.
and they had no right losing 23 straight games. That happened in 61. I should know because I was around. And but the longest losing streak actually ever was 26 games, and that was the 1989 Louisville Colonels.
There you go.
Okay. And I should know because I was around. Oh, what else we have, Dante?
We'll go to the deadline because I briefly talked about it. The winners and losers of this deadline. Give me your winners, give me your losers.
All right. Two winners. Los Angeles Dodgers. Picking up Flaherty as a starting pitcher, having a great season. He's has a great history of being a very good pitcher who had been kind of in the doldrums for a little while and has found his game again. And for the Dodgers, that's huge because their starting pitching staff is decimated with injuries this year. Not to mention Otani, who's not allowed to pitch all year, but the pitchers that were are all hurt, it seems. So having Flaherty in the starting rotation is huge. And then they pick up some depth pieces like Ahmed Rosario, good player as a depth piece for a team that's got an injured Mookie Betts and could certainly afford to think about moving Betts back to second base or anything like that if they wanted, if Rosario was playing well, and Michael Kopech, a good bullpen piece.
Yeah.
So the Dodgers are a winner, and and the other winner, although it's confusing to me, uh, is the Padres. So San Diego Padres, who desperately needed bullpen help to go along with a very good bullpen pitcher they already had in Robert Suarez, go out and they get Tanner Scott. Now, strong. They gave up a lot,
Yeah.
but from my understanding is their uh, their minor league system is so stocked with excellent players that they could afford to do that. I don't know this for fact. That's the word. All right. But I am confused by how the big picture strategy of the Padres, because here they are doing an all-in move to get Tanner Scott for a couple of months, knowing he's going to walk away at the end of the year or can as a free agent, and giving up young talent for it. When they started the season by trading away Juan Soto for young talent, as if they weren't an all-in this year, but they were planning down the road. If they really were an all-in for this year and they were going to go for guys like Tanner Scott, why wouldn't you hang on to one of the two or three best players in all of baseball in Juan Soto? The overall strategy with that team confounds me, but I think they were a winner at the trade deadline. The losers at the trade deadline, you mentioned the White Sox.
Yeah.
How do you not get rid of anything of value at this point and restock? Okay. Crochet had to go. And the fact that he's still there in exile, in prison in Chicago, is beyond me. So the White Sox are a loser. And the other two losers are the Orioles and the Yankees. Because these are two teams that could have slammed the door on the American League. Okay. Because the American League's up for grabs. You know, the Guardians, the Yankees, and the Orioles, respectively, have the best records in the league right now, but they're all flawed. Every one of those teams can get knocked out in the first round. The Astros are lingering only because they're the Astros. There's a couple other teams that are out there. But those three teams are the three top teams, and the Orioles and the Yankees were in the best position to slam the door on the rest of the league. And the Yankees came away with a good position player uh, and a good bullpen pitcher, but that's it. Okay, no game changer. They needed to get this slugging bat to protect Judge, and they didn't. So now everybody just intentionally walks Judge, and they needed to get a shutdown closer so that they could move uh, the other pieces they have in the bullpen around, and they didn't do that. So they made a couple of good moves. And the Orioles, who in some respects, although they have a lot of young talent, okay, were looking at this as being their year. You know, Corbin Burns walks at the end of the year. They went and made a trade for him. So this is the year they got to do it, right? Well, they got this guy as a stud starting pitcher, and they didn't go out and make any of those moves either. So the Yankees and the Orioles, I think, are also losers.
So this trade deadline, I'm gonna say it was the worst trade deadline in recent memory.
Agree.
You say the Dodgers were winners. Yes, I do like that they picked up Flaherty. They shored up their rotation. But in any other year, that's not even considered a
Yeah.
win. That's just average. That's the moves that you needed to make. It doesn't put you over the top. It's just a good move. So if you want to call them a winner, sure. I'm actually going to say there's no winners this year because you mentioned the Yankees and the Orioles really missed out on a golden opportunity to just take the division and run. The Orioles, they did make a trade. And I was on the plane when I saw this, so in all honesty, I thought it was different. The Orioles traded for Trevor Rogers from Miami. And this was before Tanner Scott got traded. And I think I just saw the T in Trevor. I thought it was Tanner. And when I saw what the Orioles gave up, they gave up their fifth ranked prospect, Connor Norby, along with Kyle Stowers. So when I saw the package that they gave up, I thought they got Tanner Scott. So I was just sitting on the plane. Wow, I don't even have service. I just see the Orioles make a big move. They give up a lot of prospects. And then I learned to find out it's Trevor Rogers. And Trevor Rogers has a 4.75 ERA. His expected ERA is over a 5. That is an extreme overpay. The Padres went out and got Tanner Scott. That was kind of a package I was expecting for Tanner Scott. But they got Trevor Rogers for that same.
Yeah.
It That's an overpay. That's
Yep.
not even a good move.
Not a good move.
And then you look at the Astros, who are lingering. They trade 3 prospects, including Lo Perfido, to the Blue Jays for Yusei Kikuchi. I mean, come on. Kikuchi has a 4.67 ERA. These are not good moves. They're bad moves. These are moves that might hurt 2 years down the line when these prospects are something big, and you got a half a year of a guy with a high 4 ERA. I mean, that's not good. You talked about the Yankees, and they didn't get their closer that you wanted. I am content with Mark Leiter Jr. He's a swing and miss bullpen guy, a lot of strikeouts. He's pitched in already like 3 or 4 high leverage situations. I like that move. I like the Jazz Chisholm move. But they didn't get the Tarek Skubal who stayed put in Detroit. And we mentioned Crochet staying put. But Eric Fetty gets traded from the White Sox to the Cardinals. What do they get? Future considerations. Kopech gets traded to the Dodgers. What do they get in return? Future considerations. How are you not getting top prospects for these pitchers? There's so many losers. The White Sox were losers. The Yankees, you could say, were losers. The Orioles were definitely losers. The Marlins, they got good prospects, so I can't call them losers. I'll say that the Cardinals were the biggest winner, if you could call them that, and there are a whole lot of losers. Worst deadline in recent memory. The Mets didn't get bullpen help that they desperately need. So many losers.
You, you're going to find that I believe the trade deadlines to be uh, more and more disappointing over these years because so many teams now can get into the playoffs with the extended playoffs and the extended wild cards.
Yeah,
That so many teams come August 1st are still in the hunt, that they're afraid to be sellers. So you only have a few sellers left. And who are those sellers? They're the complete trash teams. They don't have any good players. That's why they're
Yeah,
trash. So there's nobody to get rid of. So you're going to see less and less exciting moves, I think, with the expanded playoffs.
yeah, that makes sense.
So that brings us to the point of the show that we call Yesterday, Today, Before, and After, when Dante talks about something that's on his mind that's happening now, and I talk about something that's on my mind that reminds me of times gone by. Dante, what do you got?
So we talked enough about baseball. We somehow brought in a little hockey. Basketball's in the Olympics, so the other major sport is football, and that's creeping around the corner. We're getting excited. It's training camp season. But what does training camp season bring? The answer, stupidity. You have fights. And it's not, you got your helmet off, I'm going to start wailing at you. You're not just wearing a helmet, you're wearing an extra cushion around your helmet. And you're still punching each other. Why? It makes no sense. These joint practices, they're punching guys with helmets on. It, it's a practice. If it's a game, I could get behind it. I really can. You're in the midst of a battle. You're trying to make the playoffs. You're trying to win a Super Bowl. It's you're going at each other 150%. You're showing emotion. You fight. I get that. But in a practice, sure, if you're trying to make a name for yourself, trying to crack a roster spot,
Yeah.
trying to show emotion, okay. But there are so many other ways to do that. Maybe go make a great catch or go have a big hit. But every day, multiple times a day, there are fights. Yesterday or the day before, Daniel Jones is getting into a fight with the Lions. Today, Malik Neighbors is basically getting targeted by every Lions player there is. Why? I get that Malik Neighbors might be cooking you, but just you don't need to fight. And there's the inter squad practices where they fight, but even more stupid, there's the solo practices where they're fighting. The Pittsburgh Steelers are fighting with each other. And here we go. This is the last thing I'm going to say about this. Travis Kelce, this is the second year in a row where he's punching his own teammates. He's supposed to be this leader, this figure in football, figure in sports, figure in life. I mean, he's with Taylor Swift. Everybody talks about it. He's this Travis Kelce. You're fighting your own teammates. You're supposed to be a leader. Last year or the year before, he's throwing tantrums on the sidelines. And 2 years in a row where he's fighting his teammates. I mean, what a jerk. What a jerk. These training camps are just, everybody wants to overreact to these. I'm just going to say they're stupid. People wanted to overreact and say Rodgers was fighting with Garrett Wilson. That is probably the best thing that there was. Rodgers, Garrett Wilson have a disagreement. They're arguing. They're animated. But what happened at the end of it that nobody wants to show you? They dap each other up and go out next play and go after it. Like teammates should do. They're not punching each other. They're having a disagreement in practice. They dap each other up and they go back out there. That's what you need to do. Not punch each other in the head. So training camp has just been stupid this year.
You know, I find your take on this ironic because the only person that I've ever known to play baseball and hockey to get in more fights than I did was you. And here you are complaining about people fighting.
Okay, so all of the fights that I've gotten into were all in games, high leverage situations, if you want to call it that. Do you think I would ever think about punching a teammate? No. Never have, never would, never will. That's just stupid. Stupid. They're your teammates.
Watching the Olympics this year brought me back. The Olympics has changed a lot. A big part of how it's changed is the Soviet Union, not involved at all. And back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, it was a big part. Their contestants were always being accused of basically being professionals when only amateurs were allowed to perform. So they would win 70% of the gold medals. It was a farce, and it became a nationalist thing. If you could beat the Russian, there was this element of pride. In the 1968 Olympics in Mexico City, it was in the era of civil unrest and the civil rights movement here, and the Black Power movement was taking hold. And some of the Black Olympic players from the United States, uh, when they would win or be on the podium during the national anthem, they would hold up their fist in the air, which was the Black Power symbol. A lot of people found that disrespectful to the national anthem, found it disrespectful to nationalism. This was about the Olympics, kind of the equivalent of Kaepernick going down on a knee to make a statement, a political statement. So George Foreman, who most people that are watching this podcast right now know him because he makes hamburger grills, was an amazing heavyweight champion, but his amateur career led up to the 1968 Olympics when he goes into the finals, the gold medal game, against a Russian fighter. So this was big national news. We have a fighter who's going up against the guy who's probably 30 years old and is the equivalent of a professional. And George Foreman pummeled him, and they stopped the fight in the second round, which made all of us Americans get super excited because our guy beat the Russian. But even better than that, in the height of the controversy of how black athletes in America would respond after winning a medal, he took an American flag and went around the ring and waved it in four different directions. So he made no political statements other than "I'm here for the United States." He won me over that minute, and I rooted for him forever after that, because that's what the Olympics was supposed to be about. Okay, this was not a time to send some sort of political message about your beliefs. You're there performing for your country. It's why Scotty Scheffler was crying and why Djokovic was crying, because they won for their country.
Yeah.
These are guys that have won major tournaments, okay? But they were crying over winning for their country. And that's what George Foreman did back in 1968 in Mexico City. And he will ever be here for me after that. Dante, that's it. Wrap it up.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for sticking around to watch episode 10, season 2, 10th Inning Screwballs. You know where to find us. Big clips on YouTube and Spotify. Short clips on TikTok, Instagram. If you haven't already, join the chat page on Facebook. It's growing by the day, and we love interacting with you guys. From Dante Esposito
and Sevi Esposito.
Have a great week.
Go get your shine box. Ciao.